On the 2nd of April 1502, Prince Arthur, Prince of Wales, died at Ludlow Castle. Now, Prince Arthur was the eldest son of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. He was heir to the throne. Prince of Wales is the title given to the heir to the throne in England. And he had been married 5 months earlier to Katherine of Aragon. Most people nowadays know about Arthur. His story was kind of squashed underneath the story of his younger brother Henry VIII, but his death is obviously hugely significant in the fact that we ended up with Henry VIII as king and not Arthur. So Arthur died, like I say, 2nd of April 1502 at Ludlow Castle, and he was there with his new wife Katherine of Aragon. They had been married about 5 months. Both of them became extremely ill. Katherine survived, Arthur didn't. And there's a number of conjectures, theories as to his cause of death, ranging from consumption, which is tuberculosis, to the plague, to testicular cancer. Obviously, being 500 years hence, we're not ever going to really know the cause of his death, but it was tragic. It was a big blow for the Tudor newly established Tudor dynasty. We call it a dynasty, but we were on our first Tudor monarch at this time. It was a blow for the country, who were craving stability after the Wars of the Roses had gone on for so long. It was a personal tragedy, obviously, for Henry VII, Elizabeth of York, and they're known to have openly wept and had to console each other. Elizabeth reassuring her husband that they could have more children, or notwithstanding the fact that they'd lost a dear son, but they were left with one son, which was Henry. And in the time that they were in terms of the political stability of the country, but also infant mortality, it was worrying if you only had one heir, one son. Obviously, if you were the king, this was even more important. And Elizabeth did fall pregnant again. Unfortunately, Elizabeth died as a result of the complications of the birth of the subsequent child. As Prince of Wales, Arthur was based at Ludlow Castle, which is on the border of Wales and England. A very tough posting, because the Welsh lords and the English ruling powers, there was obviously conflict there. It was almost like a baptism of fire in terms of how to be a diplomat, how to keep the peace in such a turbulent place. When Arthur died, his body was embalmed and his heart was buried in St Lawrence's Church in Ludlow. He was laid in state until the 23rd of April, after which his body was processed down to Worcester Cathedral, where he was buried on the 25th of April. Arthur's tomb at Worcester Cathedral is well worth a visit. You may notice a resemblance between this tomb and the Henry VII chapel, which was built onto Westminster Abbey by Henry VII, and that is because they follow the same design. Arthur's tomb is absolutely covered in heraldry. It makes for a beautiful tomb to look at, but there was obviously messages here. You know, this was a royal, he was the Prince of Wales, he was a Tudor, and these were the rightful heirs, kings of England. There were messages everywhere in Tudor, in Tudor ceremony, in any occasion, whether it be sad or happy. The Tudors used, as their forebearers did as well, but they used it particularly well, heraldry and art, and they were very, very good at propaganda, I suppose we would call it. And Arthur's tomb is propaganda in stone. You have Tudor roses, both at portcullis, the feathers of the Prince of Wales, amongst lots of other badges on there. Now you'll notice some damage if you go and visit Arthur's tomb. Now that actually was inflicted during the Reformation, which happened under Edward VI, so that would be Arthur's nephew. Arthur's tomb was also visited by Elizabeth I, so if you go and see his tomb, you're treading in her footsteps. And what I love most out of all the flamboyance and elegance of this tomb is actually the step up into it. And I notice on Instagram and Facebook, people do take pictures of this step, the dip in this stone step, which is just a direct link to everyone who has ever stepped up into that tomb, and the thousands and thousands of feet that have crossed that step, all making their little mark into it.